Namo Brahmane Namastvagneye Nama Prithivye Nama Oshadibhyaha Namo Vache Namo Vachaspataye Namo Vishnave Brihate Karome Om Shanti 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 Om. Our reverential salutations to Brahma, the Creator, who has projected us, to Agni, the God of fire, who illumines our lives, to Prithvi, the Mother Earth, who sustains and nourishes us, to Oshadi, the medicinal herbs which cure us, to the Vedas, the source of all knowledge, to Vachaspati, the teacher of the Vedas, and to the great Vishnu, the omnipresent one, who protects us from all sides. Peace, peace, peace. Today, I will speak on self-images. I would convey my pranams to Swami Vivekananda, to our sister Seva Pranaji, to my brother monk Swami Mahayogananda, to all you devotees. This Easter is resurrection. It's a conquest of death. And in various mythologies across the world, and even legends, there is a recurring motif of death, the god dying or the hero dying and being reborn. In Greek mythology, Indian, Japanese, Chinese, you find them. So, even in the Old Testament, we have the prophet Jonah, who was, say, swallowed by a whale and was in the belly for 3 days, and then he emerged. We also have Jesus Christ buried in the tomb. The tomb becomes the womb of the future. We enter into something which is unknown. We face it, we conquer it, and we emerge. That's the story of the phoenix and everywhere. So, you die to be reborn. Even Christ says, I'll quote, "Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Each one of us has to be reborn in the spirit, become innocent, and then we will enter in the kingdom of heaven. To come back to a topic, we've all heard about Narcissus. Yeah, everyone has. I won't elaborate because next month you will get the full treatment from Swami Vedarupananda, who's going to speak about the narcissistic complex today. But we know the story. A very beautiful looking youth, separated from his friends on a hunting expedition, and in order to slake his thirst, he searched for a pool of water. He found one, and he kept on looking at his reflection. And he was so good looking, he kept on looking. He's parched with thirst, he's tired. He cannot take his eyes away from it. He cannot take his mind away from it. And we know that there are many suitors for him. They wanted to possess him, but he wasn't giving in. He wanted himself for himself. And he kept on staring in that pool of water, tired, yet anguished, and yet happy. And we know he puts a dagger in his breast and kills himself, and the blood that spills fell on those white flowers, turned reddish. They are the Narcissus flowers. It's kind of a narcotic also. Look at yourself and you feel kind of good. On the other side, we have Swami Vivekananda. One time in New York, he was with his disciple Ellen Waldo in a home where there was a mirror from floor to ceiling. Ellen was sitting down in a chair and Vivekananda was pacing up and down in front of the mirror, looking at himself. Absorbed. He kept on looking at himself, again kept pacing and being absorbed. Ellen says, now the bubble is going to burst, she thought. He is so full of personal vanity. And Vivekananda was a good-looking, you can say, monk. He turned round and says, Ellen, it's one of the strangest thing. I keep on looking at myself and I see myself, but when I turn away from the mirror, I don't remember what I look like. There we are. And that's the reason why he was trying to reinforce his image in his mind. He couldn't. This remarkable statement seems innocuous, but there's tremendous depth in it. It shows how shallow most of our philosophies and psychologies and social sciences are. How can a person look at himself, turn away from the mirror and not remember himself? What are the mechanisms working within? We all know how we nurture a secret image of ourselves in our minds. We also are aware of all these contradictions in our lives, in our intellect, and we generally blame the world outside. Obviously, we are also aware that our personality is made up of multiple sub-personalities, and we are advised to integrate them and have them operate under one dominant personality. Those various personalities are like those psychic, you can say, props, existential props. We also know there is something called multiple personality disorder, dissociative personality disorders. It's a very complex system. The semantic memories, personal memories, and the general memories are taken by a couple of personalities, two or more personalities that dominate this being inside. We also know that there is something called a bipolar, a kind of a manic and a kind of a depression. People go through those phases. It's a swing in moods and energy. Yes, there is medication for that, but all of us, we do swing a little like the pendulum. A little this side and a little on the active side, and then we swing and become a little passive or quiet or depressed. And we keep on swinging. And there are those people who hear voices in their heads, which of course is not authenticated outside. Their experiences are real, of course. They see things and hear things, but it does not correspond to the external reality. This is the starting point. Swami Vivekananda says, when I close my eyes, I see I. What do I know? Yes, I am the body. All of us, yes, we are the body. And I'm going to talk about the first image in our minds. We reinforce this image by looking at ourselves, or maybe in the mirror like Narcissus, and we know how surreptitiously we sometimes look in the mirror and see, oh, I look good now. Okay. But we have the sensory and motor systems that help in the formation of this idea of a body. But there are three other internal senses. The first is proprioceptive senses. From the musculoskeletal and the joints, you have these nerves going up to the brain. Because how does the brain know where your body is? The brain ought to know. So there's a continuous sensations going up there. It gives the idea of the body in time and space. Then there's a second, let's say, sense. It's called interoception. It is the internal state of the organs. They continuously send those signals to the brain to maintain a kind of homeostatic balance. The salt and pressure, water, all these things are, guided by this interoception. It's very important because the brain also gets these, you can say, the state of the organs. We feel we are thirsty, but it's actually the brain telling you, drink water because there's excess of salt in your blood. You need to dilute it. You think you are hungry, it's actually the brain telling you, eat now. Then there's a third sense. It's called the vestibular. That's between our ears. Gives us a sense of balance and space. These systems, they are hardwired in the brain. But we also know a kind of a disruption through some diseases or some pathogens or some drugs or alcohol can disrupt the whole, you can say, image. This has been found out in this phantom limb syndrome, which this neurologist V.S. Ramachandran has done extensive work on this. A person's limb is amputated, and yet he feels that limb there aching and taking painkillers to relieve the phantom pain. The pain is real. Of course, it's a very clever trick that this neurologist did in eliminating this phantom limb syndrome. It is true. So we have a body representation hardwired in our. Now, where exactly it is? The motor system and the other systems in your brain, especially the specialized parietal systems, parietal lobes, they are looking after this body representation. So this is our first image. Then we have another image, and that's a personality. That is you. You, what you would be, what you are. It has the IQ, religion, language, education, parents, the works. Everything, it's a dynamic interplay of nature versus nurture. that builds. There are no two personalities alike. You might find two people looking alike, but you will never find two personalities alike. It's impossible. It's a tremendous, you can say, image in our mind. And everything that has gone into making us has, in a way, contributed. There's nothing that you have done which has been useless or worthless. It has gone and hammered its nails there in that image. So, this personality of yours, that's the second image of you. We have the third image. Yeah, there are some more to come. The third is the ideal image. What you would like to be. Here you are. It is, how do I say, you have abstracted a certain sense of values, a certain sense of education from your parents, from your guardians, teachers. You've interacted with society and you've built a kind of an ideal image in your mind. This is what I would like to be. There are two divisions to this ideal image. One is the subjective side, which is like a superego. I'm not saying it's a superego, it's like a superego that keeps a kind of a rein on that image. It works on the objective image. The subjective, as I said, is the very ideals. Somehow they have been imbibed beauty, truth, and goodness. You know they are true. You know there is something essentially good in being, and you have oriented yourself towards that. That's the subjective, you can say, side of the ideal image in you. We always strive to better. The objective side of this image is nothing but we constantly look at people, movies, read books, and this is constantly being modified. If I like one cinema actor, a movie star, let's say, then someone else comes after 2 years and saying, this is better than that. There. Or if I'm 6, I would like to be 6.2 inches. I'd like to wear a little high heels and look a little taller. If I'm not fair enough, I'll use all the creams and all the, you can say, whitening lotions and make me. This is the objective side of the ideal image. So this ideal image is what impels us to do better and better and better. So we have 3. The fourth image. This is rooted in biology and it's a kind of an immune response. And what is that immune response? It's a kind of a disgust mechanism within us. Oh yes, bad food, anything malodorous will keep us away. In fact, nature tells us this is unhealthy, this will make you sick, keep away from it. And we are trained, it's instinctive. We know, that's bad, leave it away. It's a kind of a disgust mechanism. There are some thinkers who present the idea that it is actually this disgust mechanism within us, it's actually a self-protective or an immune response to external pathogens or disease or anything. That gives us a kind of a moral sense. How do we know this thing is right or wrong? My being recoils from that. And we know anything that smacks of immorality will lead us down. And we've seen examples everywhere. Lead us down and down to the depths of degradation. Somehow that keeps us sane. No, there's a limit you can go, and then you stop. So this immune response, it is an actual image within our minds. And then we have another one. That's the fantasy image. Here. And the brain, when it is not active, its default is daydreaming. When you pay attention, the daydreams stop and you focus on work or thought or anything. You let go and the mind daydreams. Kind of fantasy. Then we build a kind of a fantasy image of ourselves. Oh yes, it's okay. But when this fantasy image lives in a kind of a fantasy world where that person is everything, that's called the grandiose image. There I am the emperor of everything I survey. So till then it's okay. But it generally indulges in sick imaginations. That which is not permissible in society, it does that. So kind of a release valve or some kind of wish fulfillment goes on inside. We have another image, and that's the autobiographical self. Now, what is this? This image is hardwired in our brain as well. We have the working memory that kind of acts as a processing unit. All the data is brought inside and it is manipulated there and sent to the explicit memory there behind, or you can say long-term memory. And in that memory, there is a continuous sense of self. How do you know that you are the same person you were yesterday? Because of that autobiographical self. It's a narrative self, it's also called. We can see ourselves through years. Yes, that's me. Actually, that's not you. Your body has changed. 7 years or 8 years, everything changes. You are constantly changing, and yet you think that, yes, it's me. There you are. Maybe the brain is fooling you with that. So it's a self-representative function by using personal memories to create and maintain a coherent self-identity. This is your self-identity. So these are the images in our minds. And as we know, like we have these images in our mind, we see the world. Our world view is modified by these images. A lawyer will see things related to his field. A doctor will see things related. It's like a person who's a kind of a shoe shine. He'll keep on looking at people's shoes. And a pickpocket will keep on looking at purses and wallets and it's there. I mean, this world is a relative world. It's how we are made inside that we see the world outside. Now, these images, they are not compartmentalized. They are constantly interacting. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. They're constantly interacting. One feeds the other, one hampers another, one contains the other, one subdues the other, one rises at the other's expense. So that's a constant dynamic interplay going on within us. Is it true? I mean, this could be just a theory. Yes, it could be a theory. Could be. Swami Vivekananda gives an example of, you know how pearl oysters are made. The pearl is made. A tiny parasite or an irritant or grain of sand gets in the shell, and what it does, the creature does, is throws a kind of enameling around that irritant to protect itself from that parasite or that abrasion. And as it keeps on throwing that enameling around it, what you get is a pearl. So data from outside comes in, and our minds kind of throws a kind of enameling around that. So every time we see the world, actually we see ourselves, our images. We don't see the world as it is. We are always interacting with our minds. And when we interact with people, it is our respective self-images that actually interact. Yes. There's something hidden within you that you don't expose. Yeah. And people interact. Yes, it's nice to interact with people, and it's actually our respective self-images interacting. So again, this is a kind of a very dynamic process. So when we are so involved in our images, what we see is kind of a mental narcissism. I remember when I was young, we had gone to a place where we had to buy a ticket, of course, and get into a hall of mirrors. Wow, wonderful. And we've seen images of ourselves bouncing on the images, on the mirrors, and kind of a loop that has been created, endless images. And some of the mirrors were curved and some are distorted. And so we had images curved and distorted. Someone who's thin is appearing fat, and someone who's fat is appearing thin. Someone who's short is appearing tall, something like that. The whole hall was full of just your images, various images. It's fun if you can. What I'm trying to get at is, we are actually, the self-images are nothing but mirrors. They mirror us. And the first image is here, the second image is on this side, third image is on the front, fourth image, and there's another fifth on top, down below also, there. We are living in that hall of mirrors. That's individual existence. And such an existence is painful because you don't really know what you are. The mirrors are distorting your image. Every time you try to know yourself through a mirror, you are fooled, you're deluded. So, what do we do about it? Yes, that's a good question. You know, when we go to sleep, we give up our images, and it's such a joyful state. If we don't give up our images, you don't go to sleep. Simple as that. Something is churning out, some image is churning out something. When we play with little children, they don't have self-images inside, or maybe they have some rudimentary ones. You feel great joy. See, when you play with babies and even small children, oh, it's wonderful. And everybody likes. If there's a party going on, if a child walks in, everyone's attention goes there. So there, somewhere deep down, our own images have become oppressive. When we go to a really holy person who has no self-images within, you feel good. You feel joy, you feel uplifted. Generally, what happens is somebody's huge image dominates us and we feel small, we feel rattled, we feel terrible. Sometimes you have the people, no? And you want to get away from such people. Yeah. So there's always an escape mechanism. If we couldn't sleep, we will go crazy. So we need to get outside these images of us. How do we do that? Now, instead of looking in the mind mirror, why don't we actually look outside? Let every face and let every pair of eyes be our mirrors. We can see ourselves in the lonely woman's smile, in the homeless's joy and gratitude. You find yourself being reflected, and if they are responding with love and compassion, know that you are full of love and compassion towards them. You serve them, you help them. This is the path called Karma Yoga. You work. The internal images have been neglected for a time being. We don't want it. We are now seeing ourselves in peoples. These are our. So every animate object, and later even inanimate object, reflects us. It's not only human beings that respond. Even birds and animals will respond to your love and compassion, your unselfishness. So, for most of us, this is the path of Karma Yoga. It's an easy path. Then comes Bhakti Yoga. That's a nice path also. We are told to replace all our images that we've been hoarding over the years and replace it with that of God's image. And that is your chosen ideal. You keep on meditating, keep on praying, trying to visualize that deity within you. And gradually that deity becomes real, alive, responsive. This is the path of Bhakti Yoga. So every time you chant or you pray, you look at God's image, you are transforming yourself from the material you to a divine you. Then we have the yoga philosophy. And that's nice. The two tendencies of our mind. One is to go back to the past, think about it, the memories, and imagine the future. The yogi pulls both these and keeps a mind in the present. So that yogi is not disturbed by the past things that come out, or he doesn't project his imaginations in the future. And the tremendous insight of the yogi then builds up. The yogi can see that these images are nothing but flimsy, wrought by, you can say, error, delusion. The yogi gives them up. That's the path of yoga. Then we have the Jnana Yoga, the knowledge. He is a kind of a hero. Like he may enter into a room full of mirrors and smash the mirrors. That's a quick way. But it needs tremendous strength to do that. You see, like the shards of glass near your feet, all that you thought, loved, believed, everything goes down with a crash. So, it is difficult, but it appears a little glamorous. And, in this world of everything, fast food and everything's fast cars. And so this fast yoga Seems like a good deal. But like I said, it's only the few who can go into the room of delusions and crack everything down. And then what happens? Yes, what remains is you. In fact, if you see most of what we think or talk or believe is all second hand. Everything second hand, third hand, fourth hand, fifth hand, sixth hand. There's nothing about us that is really original. Everything is. We look at something, we want to imitate that. And there we get caught up. What remains is your originality, your pure being. So, how do I end it? There is a passage in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He who inhabits the mind, but who's within the mind, whose body is the mind, whom the mind does not know, he is your internal ruler, your own immortal self. This was the sage Yajnavalkya teaching in the court of King Janaka. Yo prithivi tishtat prithivi naveda prithivi antarayamayati eshata atma antaryami amrita. This is your real self, transcends all these selves. Swami Vivekananda could not find himself, could not remember himself. Why? Because in his place was a universal self. And that's where we need to go. From the individual to the universal. In fact, all these are the forms of God. God is, as it were, being reflected in these innumerable forms. Everything from right down from the blade of grass right up to the Creator God. It is God Himself who is this. It's like you look in the mirror, you see yourself. It's like even God would like to see Himself. Yeah, how do I look like? Huh? And there He has a kind of an image of. And what's the image? This whole universe. This whole universe is an image of God. If we can understand that, there we are. And this was what Swami Vivekananda realized. The personal image all had gone. In its stead stood that universal image. So there comes a time when you need to make a choice between this image, the individual image, or the universal image, or image of God. What do you do? So the choices come to us every moment. It's called prayas and shreyas. Both come together, the Upanishad says. And we make a choice. Either temporary gratification, we choose shreyas. And then, we choose prayers. And if we delay the gratification, we can go towards the shreyas, the highest good. That's what is it. We need to kind of hold ourselves, hold our images in check, understand what they are, and transcend them. These images, I've used mirrors as kind of analogy. It could be a prison house. We are imprisoned in our own images, and we need to get out of this. As we can replace that image of ours, those images of ours, with that of God's, or the Guru, or the mantra, we find a shift. We become more loving and compassionate and unselfish, and gradually we see we are transcending these images. And as we transcend the image, we transcend body consciousness. Swami Vivekananda looking at, he never was conscious of his body. At times he used to ask, have I eaten enough? Yeah, his disciples say, oh, you've had 3 chapatis, as you say, breads, unleavened breads. You had enough. Okay. He wasn't aware of it. And in fact, Sri Ramakrishna, when he first saw him, he looked at him, this person from Calcutta is coming. He is hardly aware of his body. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were not shabby, but they were not worn properly. He wasn't bothered. This is the path of self-transcendence. We transcend our egos gradually and we come down to where we really are. That being, that pure essence, which is nothing but aspect of divinity. Once we understand that, in the very kernel is that divinity and is being wrapped around with a kind of a delusive selves, we can understand how we can cut through these layers and come down to a divinity. I'll stop here. We have also to remember that the 4 yogas that teach you how to transcend yourself, Vivekananda had, you can say, recommended that we combine all these 4 yogas together, because we have each and every faculty with us. We have the devotional, we have the active, the working, we have the psychic or the analytic, and then we have that willpower of the yogi. So put on all the engines, let the engines go, and we can see that these 4 yogas can help us transcend the self. Or, as we know, if we have these as long as we have these self-images, we do end up like Narcissus. So either you've got to take the side of Narcissus, or you got to take the side of Vivekananda. Which one? Kayena vacha manasendriyairva buddhyatmano va prakrite swabhavat karomi yadyat sakalam parasmay Shri Krishnaya samarpayami. I hereby offer myself and dedicate all my actions done either by word, thought, or to the senses, or by habit, at the feet of the Divine in the form of Ram Krishna. May He be pleased with me. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.